A random shopper demanded I hand over the last sale item in my cart, claiming, "I need it more than you do." When I refused, she snatched it and yelled, "You're selfish and greedy." Security arrived as she screamed, "I deserve special treatment." I quietly showed my receipt and said, "I paid for it already, and now you're on camera stealing." It was a chilly Saturday morning in Chicago, and I decided to take advantage of a sale at a well-known department store downtown. The store was bustling with shoppers eager to snag the best deals. After some searching, I found the last of a heavily discounted high-end blender I'd been eyeing for months. Feeling triumphant, I placed it in my cart and continued browsing. As I turned into the home goods aisle, a woman approached me. She appeared to be in her late 40s, dressed in designer attire, with an air of entitlement that was hard to miss. "Excuse me," she began, her tone saccharine yet edged with impatience. "I couldn't help but notice you have the last blender. I need it more than you do." Taken aback, I replied, "I'm sorry, but I've been wanting this for a while. I was lucky to find it." Her eyes narrowed. "Lucky? I have a dinner party tonight and absolutely need that blender. You can get one another time." I shook my head. "I understand, but I can't give it up. It's already in my cart." Without warning, she lunged forward and grabbed the blender from my cart. "You're selfish and greedy," she exclaimed, her voice rising enough to draw attention. Stunned, I reached out to reclaim my item. "Ma'am, please return that. It's not right to take things from other people's carts." The commotion caught the attention of a nearby security guard, who quickly approached. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between us. Before I could speak, the woman interjected, "Yes, there is. This person is refusing to let me have the blender. I deserve special treatment." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Sir, I already paid for this blender. Here's my receipt." I handed it over, the proof of my purchase clear. The security guard examined the receipt and then turned to the woman. "Ma'am, this item has been paid for. Please return it." Her face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. "This is unacceptable. I demand to speak to a manager." The guard nodded. "Of course. But in the meantime, please return the item to its rightful owner." Reluctantly, she handed the blender back to me, her eyes burning with indignation. Moments later, the store manager arrived, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor. "What's the issue here?" he inquired. The woman launched into a tirade, accusing me of being uncooperative and claiming she had a right to the blender due to her urgent needs. The manager listened patiently, then turned to me. "Do you have your receipt?" I nodded and presented it. After a brief glance, he said, "Ma'am, this customer has already purchased the item. I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do." "This is outrageous," she fumed. "I'll be reporting this store for such poor customer service." "I'm sorry you feel that way," the manager replied evenly. "But we must honor the purchases of our customers." Feeling the weight of the situation, I decided it was best to leave. Clutching my blender, I made my way to the exit, the woman's protests fading behind me. As I stepped onto the bustling streets of Chicago, I couldn't help but reflect on the absurdity of the encounter. All over a blender. It was a stark reminder of how entitlement can cloud judgment and how important it is to stand one's ground, even in the face of unreasonable demands. About 2 hours later, I was sitting at a corner table of a small diner not far from the store, sipping coffee and trying to shake off the tension. I was still holding the bag with the blender, half expecting someone to come up and try to snatch it again. But things seemed quiet, so I tried to relax. Then my phone buzzed. It was a Facebook notification. A friend had tagged me in a post. "Hey, isn't this you?" I clicked the link. It was a public rant from someone I didn't recognize at first, but the profile photo was unmistakable. It was the woman from the store. She had posted a grainy photo of me, probably taken during the chaos at the checkout line, with a long, angry caption calling me a heartless witch who denied a mother of 3 a basic kitchen necessity. She wrote that I had screamed at her, threatened to hit her, and waved the blender in her face in triumph. None of that happened. She didn't use my name, but a few of her followers had already started sharing the post, saying things like, People like her should be banned from stores, and entitled jerks ruining everything. A couple of them were even trying to identify me in the comments. I froze. My heart was pounding. This was insane. I never expected her to take it this far. Then I noticed something else. In the background of the picture she posted, you could clearly see a store camera mounted to the ceiling. The store had to have footage. I wasn't the kind of person who made a scene or picked fights. But this was different. She was dragging my name through the mud online, lying to strangers about what happened, and trying to ruin my image for no reason. I called the store. Asked to speak with the manager from earlier. He remembered me right away. I thought we handled that situation already, he said. We did, I replied. But now she's posted a photo of me online with a completely false story. It's spreading fast. I'd like to know if you can provide the security footage. He paused. I'll have to check with corporate, but we definitely have the footage. That aisle has full coverage. I thanked him and hung up. Then I took screenshots of her post, the comments, everything I could find. I wasn't going to just sit and let this happen. About 30 minutes later, while I was walking home, my phone rang again. It was the store manager. I spoke to our legal department, he said. We've reviewed the footage. It clearly shows you never touched her. She grabbed the blender out of your cart and caused the disturbance. Can I get a copy of that? I asked. We can't give it to you directly, but if you need it for legal reasons, we can provide it to law enforcement or your attorney. That was all I needed to hear. I sent the woman a private message, nothing aggressive, just a clear statement. I saw your post. I have security footage from the store that proves everything you said is false. I'd strongly suggest you delete it before this goes further. She read the message almost immediately. Didn't reply. But within 5 minutes, the post disappeared from her page. Not just the post, but her entire profile. I thought that might be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, my apartment buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I checked the camera, there was a man standing there in a gray hoodie, looking around nervously. I didn't recognize him. He didn't press the buzzer again, just stood there for a minute, then walked away. That same day, I started getting weird phone calls from unknown numbers. No one said anything when I picked up, just breathing. Heavy, slow breathing. I blocked the numbers, but they kept coming from new ones. Then I got an email from a burner account. One sentence, you don't know who you messed with. No name. No other information. I showed everything to the police. They took it seriously, thankfully, and filed a report. They also contacted the store to get the footage, in case they needed it. But something told me this wasn't random. Something told me she wasn't just a bitter shopper. Something told me this was deeper. A couple of days passed without anything weird happening. I was still shaken, but part of me hoped maybe it was just an overreaction, that maybe she got scared when I mentioned the footage, deleted her account, and that was that. Then I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Slipped through the mail slot in my apartment door. It wasn't mailed. Someone had physically come to the building to leave it. The handwriting was large, messy, and written in red ink. It said, "You humiliated me. I'm not going to forget this. You took what was mine. You embarrassed me in front of everyone." That blender was more than a kitchen thing. It was a promise I made to my kids. I told them we'd make smoothies for breakfast like old times. And you ruined that. I stared at the note for a long time. It was so unhinged but so personal, like she truly believed I had committed some crime against her. And now I realized she had my address. That meant she must have followed me home from the store. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even thought about that possibility. I went back to the police with the letter. They took it, logged it, said they'd start patrolling the area more often, but there wasn't much else they could do without a direct threat. I felt helpless. The next twist came when my landlord called. He said someone had filed a noise complaint against me. I live alone, I barely play music, and I certainly don't throw parties. The complaint said I was screaming threats late at night, and it mentioned violent behavior. It was completely made up. I know you're quiet, my landlord said, but I had to tell you. This person insisted I warn you, or they'd file something formal with the city. I asked who made the complaint, and he said the person wouldn't give a name but claimed to be a concerned neighbor. That same night, my car, parked on the street like always, was keyed along the passenger side. Deep scratches all the way down, like someone had taken their time with it. I was unraveling. I felt like I was being hunted for something so stupid, so petty, over a blender. But now it was bigger than that. This woman was making it personal, and worse, she was smart. She didn't leave digital trails. She didn't show up in ways that could be traced. She made herself a shadow. I decided to do some digging of my own. I remembered her full name from the receipt debacle at the store. She yelled it at the manager, demanding he remember who she was. That detail stuck. So I Googled her. Nothing much at first, just a few mentions here and there on parent forums, some charity event listings. Then I hit something strange. There was an article from 2 years ago about a woman with her name who was involved in a messy PDA scandal in a suburb just outside the city. Accusations of bullying, manipulating event funds, and threatening other parents. No criminal charges, but enough of a stir that she quietly resigned and moved. The same name. Same look. It had to be her. I reached out to one of the parents who had commented on the article. I told them everything that had happened, and they responded almost instantly. "Oh no," the message said. "You crossed paths with her? I'm so sorry. She's obsessive. She doesn't let things go. Ever. Be careful." Then another message came through. "She has a way of turning people against you. She spreads lies, gets people to harass you without even realizing it. She tried to ruin my life too. Watch who you trust." I didn't sleep that night. I changed the locks. I added a camera outside my door. I installed one inside, facing the front window. I kept my phone fully charged always. But things weren't quiet. A few days later, someone rang every buzzer in my building over and over at 3 a.m. When a neighbor finally opened the main door out of frustration, the person didn't go to any apartment, just left another note wedged in mine. This one had no words, just a drawn blender in red pen with big, angry excess all over it. I didn't understand what her endgame was. Did she want to scare me into giving up? Did she want to watch me fall apart piece by piece? Or was it just revenge for daring to say no to her in public? That same week, I got called into HR at work. An anonymous complaint had been filed accusing me of workplace harassment. Totally out of the blue. I sat in that room, stunned, as they read off vague claims with no names, no dates, no actual examples. I told them I was dealing with a stalker, showed them police reports, screenshots, everything. HR took it seriously, thankfully. They gave me time off. But that's when it hit me. She was trying to erase me. Not just ruin my name, but pull apart every part of my life. Home, work, peace of mind. And it all started because I wouldn't hand her a blender. After that HR meeting, I stopped sleeping. I started second-guessing everyone. I wondered if she had people helping her, if anyone I knew was feeding her information. I stopped using social media. I shut everything down. Then I got a call from the police. They had reviewed some of the footage from the store. Apparently, while going through it for my case, they noticed something strange. After our confrontation, she hadn't left immediately. She walked through a few other aisles, then out to the parking lot, where she stood near the exit for 20 minutes, circling cars, writing something in a notebook. That explained how she got my plate number. The officer said they'd opened a case for stalking, but they still needed more. I decided to push back. I reached out again to the woman who had messaged me about the PDA incident. We talked for a while. Then, she put me in touch with 3 more people who had been through something similar. One of them, a man, said his dog had been poisoned after he got into a dispute with her over a neighborhood zoning issue. Another woman said she lost her job after a campaign of anonymous emails ruined her reputation. No one ever proved it was this woman, but they all suspected it. She was smart. She never got caught. Always moved one step ahead. So I changed the plan. Instead of hiding, I went public. I created a new social media account under a fake name. I posted a full, detailed story about what had happened to me. I didn't mention her name, just the facts. I included the footage the store gave to the police, which I was now legally allowed to reference because it had been submitted into evidence. I kept the tone honest. No exaggerations. Just the truth. I wanted people to see her pattern. The post started spreading. Quickly, people recognized her. Former neighbors, school parents, even someone from her old job commented with, "She did this to me too." The thread exploded. I saved every comment, every shared experience. I printed them, backed them up, made sure nothing could be lost. Then I contacted a lawyer. He specialized in defamation and cyber harassment. When I handed him the folder of everything I had collected, notes, screenshots, messages, the police report, he looked me in the eye and said, "We've got her." We filed a civil suit. And then things broke open. Under pressure from the court, she was forced to turn over her phone. Investigators found dozens of fake accounts, all linked to her. Some used to leave comments on my employer's review pages, some used to harass me directly, and others used to send threats to people who commented in support of me online. The court ordered a full investigation. The final twist came when her husband, who had apparently had enough of her lies, testified that she'd followed me home from the store that day. He said he begged her to stop, that she'd been obsessed with being wronged and humiliated. It turns out I wasn't the first person she stalked. And I probably wouldn't have been the last. The court ruled in my favor. She was ordered to pay damages, stay away from me, and was officially charged with stalking and defamation. But that's not where it ends. In the courtroom, the judge said something that stuck with me. "You started this over a blender. And now you've lost your reputation, your family, and your freedom. Was it worth it?" Her face, once smug and self-assured, was blank. Hollow. But here's the part that hit me hardest. When I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. I had spent months scared, paranoid, angry. I had become someone else just to fight back. I stopped trusting people. I let her drag me into her chaos. So yeah, she got what she deserved. But so did I, because I let it consume me. If I could go back to that morning in the store, knowing what I know now, I still wouldn't give her the blender. But maybe I'd handle what came after with less rage. Maybe I wouldn't let her turn me into a mirror of her madness. Maybe. Or maybe I'd do it all the same way, just to make sure she never does it to anyone else again. Because some people think they can take whatever they want and scream the loudest to get their way. But when you show them what real consequences look like, they finally shut up.